A lot has been happening with Fallout 76 as of late. We of course have been seeing the constant flow of Wastelanders teases, whether it be some of the trailers, images, or just information being shared by Bethesda. And although this is great, and we'll likely get more this Thursday and a lot more next Thursday, because that next Thursday is PAX East, there also has seemingly been a constant flow of issues or exploits specifically in-game. A lot of problems popping up, then Bethesda responds and addresses them, although this past weekend, which many of you may have noticed if you constantly play the game, we have gotten one that is a bit worse than some of the others. Outside of that, in this video I also want to discuss how Fallout 76 is becoming Metro, and a few other things that are odd or interesting going on. But before that, I do want to mention a word from today's video sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. So I'm sure at this point, many of you have already heard of Raid, whether it be on my channel or certain others. It's a free-to-play turn-based combat RPG, and one of the great parts about it is it's one of those games that you could play for just a few minutes or for hours on end. Whether it be in the arena against other players or even just in some of the dungeons against different raid bosses. In Raid, there are a wide variety of characters you can unlock of different rarity levels and with a wide variety of different abilities, and that is one of the cornerstone fun aspects of this game, unlocking different characters, defining them with different character builds, and then finding synergies between their abilities as you create your team. Although something you may have not known about Raid is it just recently got a desktop version. And this comes with the ability to easily switch from mobile to desktop on the fly. So now you can play Raid whenever and however you would like to. If you like what you heard, you can go to the video description right now, click on the special links, and you'll get 50,000 silver. And a free epic champion as part of the new player program to start your journey. So now I know not all of you like video sponsors like that, but this one in particular, it's actually very special as it's allowing me to go to PAX East this year. And specifically at this year's PAX East, I will have the opportunity to play 20 minutes of Wastelanders, which just next week, next Thursday, I will have a video on that, so you can look forward to it. And again, that 1-minute integration is what's allowing me to do that. A few days ago now, I made a video on Fallout 76 news where I discussed how there recently was a new dupe method, this specifically around power armor duping. So to be clear, all you can dupe with this are sets of power armor, and the core premise of this one is using a server crash method. Server crashes are used often with dupes because it allows you to roll yourself back. So the core premise of this one is you could actually give your power armor to somebody else, crash the server, then you'll get a rollback, still have the power armor, and so will the other person. And although at the time when I made that video, I hadn't noticed too many crashes, since then I've noticed a lot, like a lot. I would say now roughly, and this of course is just my own subjective experience, roughly 25 to 35% of servers I connect to will crash. Oftentimes this will happen as I'm joining the server, it'll just start lagging out and then I will end up getting disconnected, which enters me into this weird kind of glitched out state. And it seems like talking to other players or even just seeing posts, this is fairly widespread on all three platforms. And even some servers, you'll find people failing at this. You'll just constantly get lag or a server disconnect message pop up and disappear. And this is likely because people are attempting to do this server crash, but failing. In fact, while playing, I found somebody really trying hard to do it. I actually watched him do it for a while, but I don't know, he couldn't get the hang of it for some reason. So if you do notice this on your own server, you could look around for two players standing next to each other at a camp, but oftentimes not one with a vendor because that's probably what they're doing. And before anyone asks, yes, I have reported him. So this pretty quickly has become a quite deliberating problem in game. It's kind of hard to avoid if you play the game on public servers. And even worse about this is it actually is at a really bad time. It became popular just before a 3-day weekend, where one, many players were eager to play the game because they themselves had a 3-day weekend, but also Bethesda was out of office for an extended period, because of course Bethesda had a 3-day weekend. I specifically waited to post this video so it was quite late in the day to see if we would get some kind of response from Bethesda, but at least it doesn't look like today we are getting one. Now in fairness, they likely just got back into the office, they may be trying to figure out how to fix this, although on the other hand, this is still a live service game, and I feel like with something this pervasive that literally will just disconnect you from a server altogether, it might be something you call in on a holiday for. But hopefully tomorrow we do hear something. The situation overall is pretty interesting because as of late, we've seen a lot of exploits. Several of these being dupes. We've also seen the rise of hacks with Fallout 76 since late December, where several very high profile ones got attention. But with this particular instance, it is an exploit, and something interesting about that is we really haven't seen much in the way of bans for these exploits. Bethesda has definitely been fairly quick about addressing them. We've seen hot fixes over the past few weeks, basically one a week at this point, with all of them addressing one exploit or another. But at least thus far, many of the users abusing these haven't been banned. Bethesda is fairly quick to ban users using third-party software, and that definitely is more popular. But when it comes to exploits, there hasn't been much, which is obviously a problem because they're causing significant harm to the game and the servers, and in this particular instance, definitely affecting other users. There has been some speculation that a giant ban wave will come before Wastelanders, but it's definitely time for it. Separate from that, one of the other very interesting aspects of this is what kind of effect it's had on the in-game economy of Fallout 76. So you might be thinking to yourself, well, how many copies of power armor do you need? Why would you even want to abuse this dupe more than once or twice? And I would say one of the driving forces is likely the real money traders. People taking in-game Fallout 76 items and selling them for actual cash. The Strangler Heart power armor is very frustrating to actually unlock because you have to complete the vault raids, which are timely and it takes a lot of effort on your part. Or you could just buy it for a few bucks on some of the websites selling it, and now that people are duping it, it seems like those prices have actually lowered some. It was selling for around $40 or so back in December, but now, looking more recently, it seems like you could get it for around $10, which is definitely a significant drop. And even separate from that, one of the ironic parts of this, the only reason this is possible is due to a totally separate bug, as technically you're not supposed to be able to trade this power armor, but an exploit around that was found months ago and just still hasn't been fixed. Separately, if you guys remember back to December, where there was that hack that allowed you to spawn in items, well, many people actually spawned in legendary power armor, something that is unobtainable in-game right now. For one reason or another, that stuff was never comprehensively removed. There are many sets still all throughout Fallout 76, and of course being very illegal. This is something else that seems to be getting quite a bit of attention with this most recent dupe. People mass-producing legendary power armor, in particular Strangler Heart legendary power armor to really stack the bonuses and then selling them. So in effect, it's actually the stacking of several different issues to create this pretty bad situation that we currently find. Although if you are somebody who is thinking about doing this or buying this, one way Bethesda could pretty neatly clean this all up, if it is possible. Technically, in order to actually have the Strangler Heart power armor, you need the recipe. So Bethesda has a way to actually check accounts that don't have the recipe earned, but do have the power armor. They'll know that an exploit was used and can do a fairly widespread ban wave as a result of that. Now, there might be a few somewhat innocent people caught in the mix, but I wouldn't be shocked if that is one of the avenues they go in response to this. But speaking of the Fallout 76 economy, something else that is pretty interesting and going on is how Fallout 76 is actually turning into Metro. In Fallout 76, of course, the intended currency is caps. You could use it all throughout the base game, it has many uses in-game, but as the economy has been affected by some of these exploits, and just overall has grown naturally since the release of the game, caps have really lost their value. In particular, one of the recent ones that has been an issue are with presents. During the holiday event, you could earn presents in-game. These give you a wide variety of items, including caps. And now since over the past few months there have been several very popular ways to dupe and the inherent value of these presents, people have been mass duping them, and then of course selling them and then other people buying them, and you could very easily and somewhat cheaply actually get thousands of these presents, making it so there's been a huge influx of caps in the economy. To a point where even we talked about how in the past some users were using this as a griefing method, going to vendors in game, buying out everything so the recipient would actually hit the max cap value, but then users would keep buying things so they would basically not earn any caps. Well, with all of this going on and the inherent value of the cap being devalued so much, people have actually taken to using other things as a currency. And in particular, over the past few weeks to a month, it seems like many have started switching to 5.56 ammo as currency instead of caps. This is definitely not universal, and it's been a gradual process thus far, but you can definitely find many posts and even in-game players who are requesting ammo instead of caps in exchange for their items. Now, why is it 5.56 in particular? I honestly don't know. I guess it's one of the more common ones that also is particularly useful. A good handmade rifle being one of the more popular ones as far as legendary items go, which ironically enough is almost exactly what happened in Metro as money was devalued so much and really lost its inherent purpose that people started using ammo to trade instead. And we're seeing something similar evolve with the Fallout 76 economy, even many people exchanging all of their caps for ammo instead. And frankly with that one, it's not really bad or good. I guess the situation which brought it about is bad, but it's kind of just really interesting. And then one last thing that has recently popped up that is just very odd or curious. We recently talked about how in Fallout 76 there were some bans for having illegal scrap kits. These were items that were actually given by the customer service after Fallout first launched and people are losing items in their scrap box. It's basically just a bunch of bulk junk that you can have in exchange for things you may have lost. Except, like many of the other things in this video, with that glitch that allowed you to spawn in items, these were spawn in, and with some of the dupes, mass duped, because obviously this is kind of handy to have on you. Although fortunately, as of late, Bethesda actually banned many users that had 10 or more of these. Except the problem was people were actually mass duping these and giving them to innocent players in an attempt to get them banned to kind of prove a point to Bethesda that, hey, you can't just ban someone for having them on their person. Because let's say some low-level new player doesn't realize that, hey, I'm not supposed to have this, that could be a problem and they could get caught in the ban wave. Well, either way, it seems like several people have actually started getting unbanned from this, and it seems fairly small scale thus far, although I have had it confirmed from several sources. Except the scrap kits weren't removed. So they were banned for having too many scrap kits, then unbanned a few days later, but still have all of the scrap kits. Now again, this seems like it's very minor, at least thus far. It's not like hundreds have been unbanned, but rather in the tens. But it's just very odd. And in general, with some of these ban waves, it's typically a snowball process. It'll start fairly small, but then get larger and larger as they flesh things out with it. So perhaps we start to see some innocent or hypothetical innocent players getting unbanned, although I think it would be good to just remove all of those scrap kits. Fallout first came out many months ago, and I think most people should have used them by now. So overall, a bit of a negative one around Fallout 76. I really didn't want it to be, but it's just what's happening as of late. I feel like some people might look at this as kind of just dogpiling on Bethesda, but it really is just more of a recap of what actually is happening as of late. I'm not deliberately trying to be negative in this video. If anything, I would love to cover more positive things. Although fortunately, I should have a video later this week after the Inside the Vault article that will have a more positive look at the game as we get more news around Wastelanders. And even just next week, we should be getting a lot more in the way of news and even some gameplay from PAX East. So there's definitely a lot to look forward to. Covering these negative issues, I constantly mention this, but I really feel for Bethesda. It's going to be a hard dynamic to try and keep the game maintained with actually addressing some of these lingering problems, while also working on the massive DLC to hopefully have a more long-term recovery of the game and win back that core audience. I wouldn't be shocked if some of the reasons we don't see as instant of patches or some of these band-aid patches is a lot of the workforce is probably on Wastelanders, and even more specifically now, prepping for PAX East. And although I definitely feel for them, it definitely doesn't give them a free pass when it comes to maintaining the game as it exists right now. But one of the reasons I say this is it's not like even the Atomic Shop or some of the microtransactions are getting a ton of attention. As of late, even those have been kind of lackluster, and a lot of people mentioning that they want more stuff on that. It just seems overall we're kind of in a lull before the big update. But either way, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this one. Hopefully, as always, you found this informative, if nothing else. But with that, I hope to see you all next time. Later.